For years, I dealt with constant fatigue and complete lack of drive to do anything beyond the absolute essentials. Back when I was in school, I managed to graduate, but I never achieved the academic potential I knew I had. Later at work, I could hold down a job, but I never really thrived. I always had the intention to eat better, to exercise, and take care of myself, but despite the goals I set, I could never stick to anything long enough to see results. Over time, my health declined, and the cycle just kept repeating. Now, this is the post I saw online, and later he goes to talk about how he used or how he discovered dopamine and the whole concept of dopamine, from Andrew Huberman and such. Now, I read this because this is a very relatable scenario for myself, where originally speaking, I thought that I was very lazy, right? I thought I was just inherently lazy and that a lot of the things that I set out to do, right, trying to improve my health, trying to improve, money, relationships, or whatever it might have been, I always just could never really seem to live up to that expectation I had, or perhaps even to the expectation of others. And that was quite difficult. And immediately I thought, oh, I'm just lazy, right? I just don't want it enough. And that's that. And it's very difficult and frustrating when you're in a position where you just can't seem to turn up and do that right thing, no matter how small. But then you're seeing other people, perhaps your age or even younger, or just generally other people being able to do it and be able to live the life that you want to live. And the fact that you don't have it is obviously quite frustrating. Now, I was actually also introduced to, the concept of dopamine, I believe also, or by Andrew Huberman, right? Just understanding more about, oh, okay, so it's not because I'm just inherently lazy. It's because I decide to start my day playing hours of video games and then afterwards I can't do anything, right? I don't have the willpower to do anything, right? Um, and yeah, dopamine was a really interesting topic, which I sort of looked into because I realized, right, well, if I'm not conscious of how I'm using that dopamine, how I'm getting it, right? So, for example, if I'm on my phone early in the morning, if I'm playing video games early in the morning, or whatever it is, if I'm getting some cheap win in the morning that didn't really require any effort, then that's obviously not ideal. And by doing that, by starting off the day like that, it makes things very difficult for the rest of the day. Now, this is why I talked to one of my friends about this, the idea of winning the morning, right? In the sense of try and do the most difficult thing or the most productive thing you can do in the morning. Just get that done because the feeling of having a really productive morning is great because it means that, for the rest of the day, first of all, you're in a better mood. Second of all, you feel like you can keep going and maybe get a bit more done and so the day's great, right? But I know for like from experience, I've had ruts in the past where I'd wake up in the morning at like 6 and I'd play video games from like 6 o'clock to like 2 in the afternoon. Right now, these weren't that occasional, gratefully, but they did happen. And afterwards, I felt awful, genuinely awful. And the only thing I would do after that is I'd just go to the gym, right? And this video isn't to say that, you or I are able to prevent ourselves from maybe going down a rabbit hole every now and then in terms of, dopamine. What it's more so about is just be able to recognize that, look, you're not lazy. And it is actually a bit more perhaps scientifical than that, just around dopamine. But also the case of, look, if you have a rough day, which you're going to, and I do as well, try and do something in the day afterward that is somewhat productive, right? So for me, if I did ever sort of have those really bad days where I just waste the day, I try and go to the gym, right? I just try and go to the gym, try and do something. Look, I might even go there for 30 minutes, but I get something done to at least say, look, the day was awful, but at least I did this sort of thing. So I want you to ask yourself though, just these questions because I want you to really ask yourself if actually you are lazy or not, right? Because I think that a lot of people just genuinely think they're lazy when actually they're overstimulated, when actually their dopamine just completely fried because they spent, a good hour or so in the morning just on their phone scrolling social media or whatever it was. And be able to ask yourself those questions, really consider if actually there is ways where you can adjust your routine, your regular routine, in order to just more easily control that dopamine so that you can put more of that energy toward the things you do want to improve on, towards your health, towards whatever project or finance thing you're working on. So hopefully you found this video useful. Ask yourself those questions, and I'll catch you soon.